Fruitful Living with Sissel Anderson. Here on Morning Joy, where truth matters.
Good morning, everyone. I am Nick de la Torre, and you are listening to Morning Joy, where truth matters. And on Wednesdays, like today, we welcome Sissel Anderson for Fruitful Living. Sissel, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Nick. How are you doing?
Oh, I am doing stupendously well. Thanks for asking.
That's great. I mean, you must be if you're able to use those words this early in the morning. I think that third cup of coffee is helping.
Well, I just ran out actually over the break, so I'm going to have to get a fourth one.
That's okay. I'm going on no coffee this morning, so whatever happens. Hopefully the Holy Spirit fills in the gap there. That's what I've been praying my whole commute in. So it's wonderful to be with you here today, and I'm loving the topic, and I was really enjoying listening to Adam and Debbie kind of talk about Adam particularly talking about his upbringing and how the faith was really modeled to him. And I was thinking a lot about okay, how did my parents pass down the faith? And Nick, I have a little bit of an interesting faith background in that I became Catholic when I was 17. So
cool.
I was not raised Catholic, although I say that my parents definitely had more Catholic influence in their life than they realized, and there were some Catholic things in there. But and we really didn't even start practicing Christianity until I was about 6 or 7. So I remember a time when there was no God in life. I remember that period. And I also remember a lot of transitions between that 6 and 17 because I think if I could sum up how my parents passed down the faith is that I got to really witness them searching for the truth. And they were very open and honest about it. And I think that's something that I know is like me, I'm not a parent, but I think I would be a little bit scared once I am a parent of showing that I don't know something to my kids.
Sure.
I think that's really terrible. You're a father, right?
I am.
Yeah, so I can imagine that's a little bit nerve-wracking to be like, well, I don't know. I don't know. And you're like, oh, is that going to dissuade them from faith or anything? But my parents were very much searching for something. What they were searching for was the Catholic Church, but they were trying to find it outside of the Catholic Church. They both were cradle Catholics who fell away really badly for a long time, and we would go to a new denomination, a new church, and we would stay there for a while. We'd be all in. My parents were very big on you don't just go to church. You have to, be very involved. You are, just very incorporating it into our lives. Like church would be at the center of our lives. So we got very connected. But then something inevitably would happen in the church, usually within the little church authority that they might have at that particular church. And my parents would question something and they'd say, well, why is this not being taken care of? Why is there no discipline from this? Why is this not being handled? They were looking for church authority that was not there. And we would inevitably leave. And we would usually leave and go to a new denomination, a new church. And that was always really hard for me because I got very involved, very connected, and I didn't like it. But they were extremely open. These are the reasons why we're leaving, because they were looking at the Bible and saying, this is not being followed. This is not accurate. The church is not doing this right. They're not actually following God. And so we moved to a new church. And then same thing, we get really, really involved. And then it was a little bit difficult for me as someone, especially who was much more emotional, especially during the teen years, but did not appreciate it always. But what I did appreciate, again, is that my parents were constantly explaining, this is why. I didn't always like it at first, but this is why. They were, and then they would, whatever new denomination we got into, whatever was slightly maybe different from the past one, they always made sure we understood those differences and made sure that we started practicing whatever that difference was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So that it wasn't like we weren't just going to attend a church and make it our own. Like if the church was saying that this is what we should do, that's what we were going to do. So when it came to becoming Catholic, that was a whole big drama, right? I fondly call whenever my parents dropped and my mom, said that she had been researching the Catholic Church and she wanted to go to Mass and she wanted to become Catholic again. I mean, we were a very Reformed Protestant. We were going to a very Calvinist church.
Oh,
and
okay.
I called it the Catholic bomb was dropped on us, and I was like, absolutely not. That's a little step too far. We can leave this last church, but I'm not going to do that. But she was very loving, and she was very force of a woman, but she was very lovingly walked with me and my siblings for about 8 months, just like constantly going over, this is why we're doing it. And like we could have these debates back and forth about, well, this is where we've been misled about what the Catholic Church believes, and this is what it really believes, and this is the authority that God, Jesus gave the church, and it kept going until the point where I could be very open to it. And I really, really appreciate that from my parents, is that not just in things of like, how we are living out our Catholic faith, like from the Catechism, are we obeying all the, the 10 Commandments, but it was also how do we live out our faith with our friends, with our family. Whenever there was, maybe a conflict in a relationship I had, my mom was like, always, we go to God. And then we also who can we go to who has been practicing their faith for a long time that we can get, some advice from. And so just all aspects of my life, how does our faith influence it? And it was really beautiful to see my parents figuring it out themselves, because again, they made mistakes along the way. They made a lot of mistakes along the way. But it was really beautiful to see that, and for them to be honest when they made those mistakes, and when they, realized that they were wrong about something. And I'm sure lots of people listening probably have felt the same thing, because, maybe their parents weren't as catechized at the beginning of their childhood, but maybe towards the end they had learned more and they were more involved in their faith. And suddenly they're like, oh, we really need to be doing this holy habit. We need to be doing this as a family. We shouldn't be doing this anymore. Like, I remember when we became Christian, suddenly certain TV shows and movies we didn't watch anymore. Like, there was just a difference that was made. And so that, to me, is one of the most beautiful ways that my parents lived out their faith and passed it down to me and my siblings.
Wow, that is profound. I'm so curious, because you and your siblings spent so many years following on the coattails of this journey your parents were on, and you just kind of trusted and you went along and you learned the new thing at the new church. What was it specifically about your parents' journey into Catholicism that created a little bit more hesitation for you?
I think it's because they had just the church that we were at was probably the most against Catholicism, but at the same time was actually the closest to Catholicism we had been in.
Yes, sure.
It was a Reformed Protestant Presbyterian church, the same denomination actually that Scott Hahn was in before he became Catholic.
Interesting.
And so it was a pretty liturgical church. Every service was set up very much like a mass. We did communion every week. Like, it was very similar. But I think it's because some of the high school Sunday school classes that I was in were very big on like showing. I had a teacher, I still pray for him. I really do think he's going to become Catholic, because he understood the Catholic faith quite well, but he still disagreed with it. So he was very good. He would defend some of the common things that people say about the Catholic Church, like, they pray to Mary, they put her too high. He would say, like, no, this is what they do. He was very good about that, but I think because of that, it made me more hesitant, because I thought, well, then we're just in the right, because we understand what they believe, but we're in the right, but I didn't actually. And so I think it was just I love my grandmother was a beautiful, devout Catholic. She had passed away by this point, but she was a really good example. So I didn't have a bad feeling towards Catholics. I just thought that they were wrong. And so I think it was a hard transition. And probably from the immature teenager Sissel, I was a little bit worried about how my Protestant friends would feel about me becoming Catholic. That was probably tied into it quite a lot, because I had seen other people who had left the small church that we were at, who had gone to Orthodox churches or had gone to the Catholic Church, and they were just lost in the community. You never really talked to them again.
Okay, so what do you think was kind of was there a defining moment or question or topic that you learned that made that pivot happen for you internally?
I think it's kind of, there's a lot of different things that came together, but I think one of the biggest ones was I suddenly just felt very appreciative of the fact that the Universal Church and how there was such a large community and it wasn't divided. Now, granted, I know that our Catholic, faith, we definitely can get divided on things. But when you're first entering in, you're seeing when you're coming from really small, parsed out denominations where a church might only have 100 people and the church next door, we don't agree with them on this, this, and this, it feels very lonely and isolated. And so I think just seeing that that's not how Jesus wanted us to live out our faith. That's not how Jesus wanted us to, be in church together, was that we were so parsed out into these small little groups. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me, was just seeing that, no, Jesus put authority down so that this wouldn't happen, so that we could be one large universal church and we wouldn't be confused.
That's beautiful. So in the context of your journey home to the Catholic Church, well, first of all, your siblings, where do they stand on all of this?
They are thankfully both practicing Catholics today.
Glory be.
They actually, I was the last one to decide to join the RCIA classes.
Oh.
But we all joined at the same time. I was the last one who could join to enter at the Easter Vigil a few months later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. So today, what is your favorite thing, the thing that makes you the most grateful about your decision to become Catholic, and maybe even grateful towards your parents for their humility and willingness to become Catholic back then?
I think it is the fact that we became Catholic when we did, when I was on the cusp of becoming an adult, because it really helped me actually take a serious look at my faith. And from that point on, it took a while. It's been a bit of a struggle over the years to develop a prayer life and have people in my life and have the routine of adding things like adoration in has been a huge part of it as well. But I think honestly, just having to take a hard look at my faith and having the beautiful devotions that the Catholic Church is so rich in to help guide me through the really fun young adult years of life, coming from college and out of college and just navigating a lot of things.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us, Sissel. And here you are today working on team as a part of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Could you have ever imagined this when you were 15 or 16?
I know. I think it's so funny. I started laughing when I realized it was a year and a half after I became Catholic that I started working at the Guadalupe Radio Network. And I was like, if only my Protestant friends could see me now.
Yeah. That is so funny. Sissel, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. What a beautiful testimony of faith and humility on the part of your parents and your own journey within it. We'll be talking later in the show with a Catholic artist who has made an incredibly beautiful tool for helping your kids develop a habit of night prayer. And I'm particularly interested in this because I do night prayer with my children, and I think the tool that we are going to be discussing will make that even better for my family. That's the end of the first hour. More to come on Morning Joy in the second hour. You can catch the whole show on the Morning Joy podcast, or just keep listening on most of these radio stations. Also, look us up on social media at GRN Online, and we'll be back after the break.
This has been Morning Joy, Where Truth Matters, hosted by Nick De La Torre and produced by the Guadalupe Radio Network. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again. That's grnonline.com/joy.